This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN.
Hey you, my name is TomSka Ridgewell, and kids are stupid. They're dumb, and they're also idiots. Allow me to explain. Here is a picture of my brain, and here is a picture of a child's brain. Notice how it is significantly smaller and full of crayons, which they've shoved up their nose, like a dumb, stupid, idiot person would do. That is how I am starting this video. Allow me to explain this seemingly unsolicited attack on the youth of today. I am a little distressed at the moment about something that I've noticed happening on my channel, and I wanted to talk about it. So if you'll indulge a little bit of a ramble, here we go, baby. But before we continue, I want to take a quick moment to address anyone watching this video right now that is under the age of 13 and your parents or guardians do not know what you're watching. They do not know my stuff. They haven't given you express permission. I don't think you should be watching my videos. I don't think they are appropriate for you. I think they could potentially be bad for your growth and development, and I think you should probably watch something else. I mean, if you really want to continue watching this mess, please go and speak to a parent or guardian, show them some of my stuff, and if they make an informed decision that they think my work is appropriate for you, that's cool, whatever, awesome. But I don't think this is a good idea. And as someone who watched a lot of stuff like this, and it didn't turn out awesomely because of it, I think there are better options. Have you seen Adventure Time? That's a great show. That's condescending. But you're under 13, I get to condescend to you. Anyway, when I first started making content on YouTube, I had a very simple code that was largely instilled within me from a religious upbringing and fear that my parents would see my videos. These rules were basically that I wouldn't do swearing, I would avoid sexual content, and I wouldn't blaspheme. And these rules I held pretty closely, to the point that I would also enforce them onto some of my friends. You may think that I am the great corrupter, but you largely have me to thank for Eddswold being as family-friendly as it was. However, one thing that I never had an issue with was violence. Loved violence, probably a byproduct of being raised on sites like Newgrounds and just webtoons, just the hyper-ultra violence of early online content. Probably the result in itself of there being no room for voice acting, really, so the only way you could convey a joke was through someone just getting killed, and to me that was just the best shit ever. Even though there have been points where the degree of violence has expanded beyond the realms of decency within my work, I would still argue that it is the most consistent feature of the things I make, which is why when I suddenly started getting a lot of comments about it, I was very confused. Comments saying, this video is too violent, this video is too bloody, this video is too scary. This confused me, and initially I thought, oh, is this just a byproduct of the next generation liking different things? You know, they haven't been raised on the same levels of ultra violence, and they don't necessarily have the stomach for it, and that is fine. You know, times change, and perhaps I should too. But then I started noticing another comment coming up very frequently. That was one where people would pose very pedantic and logical questions like, why didn't he just take the gun from the baby? How did the dog fire the gun? Why haven't the police arrested this horse person? Which I honestly just pinned down to things like CinemaSins, a new-bred generation of overly cynical commenters looking to point out plot holes and logical gaps in a fucking comedy sketch. But then I also noticed one more phrase cropping up both within those comments and between them. Is this real? And that was when I started to realize that these weren't just cynical teenagers, these were children, young children. Children too young to discern the difference between fiction and reality, between a family channel vlog and a scripted visual effects added comedy sketch. I make my videos for people who at the very least know what a joke is, that can tell the difference between children's programming and whatever the fuck it is that I make. And all of a sudden, I've noticed a swath, a terrifying congealed mass of sticky-fingered children descending upon my main channel who don't realize that. Kids who don't realize that I have added a muzzle flare and a blood splatter in editing, but think that they have watched a real person die on their computer screen and are incredibly distressed by this. And that is just mortifying to me. I've struggled for many years grappling and trying to draw the line where the responsibility falls on a creator on YouTube. I initially believed that creators should just make whatever they want, as long as they're following the terms of service of the site they're on and the laws of the country they're in, and that it's entirely the audience's responsibility to make an informed decision about the content they consume and whether or not it affects them. Over years, my stance has changed. At one point, it was very militantly that creators should take full responsibility for the well-being of their audience, to not lead them astray by perpetuating negative stereotypes or normalizing prejudice or promoting the irresponsible behaviors. After all, we are called influencers for a reason. But after some humbling clapbacks and more learning experiences, I've just adopted a sort of belief in personal responsibility. I'm going to worry about the things I make. I'm going to follow my own code, trying to largely do no harm, and everyone else can worry about themselves. However, when I'm all of a sudden being inundated with an audience that I do not want, but nonetheless seemingly suddenly have, it's thrown me into a little bit of a crisis. Truth be told, I've always made my videos for a 12 to 15-year-old demographic, and by that I actually mean a 12 to 15-year-old version of myself. Ever since I started uploading when I was 16 years old, I've been making videos for me, for this little inner version of me, and I make the videos that I think he either would have wanted to see or honestly even needed to see at various points. And that's not to say that I haven't fluctuated within those boundaries. I have definitely made content that is aimed older, especially on this channel. This channel skews much older, but on my main channel, most of the time, that's who I'm aiming my work for. But it is definitely not people younger than that. I know 12 to 15 is a very arbitrary age range, but it made sense to me. When I started making stuff on YouTube, there was no guidebook, there was no rules, no one told me who to make videos for, so I kind of just had to pluck a demographic out of the air and say, I'll make videos for that. And that has served me largely fine for years. I mean, the reason I even made those sex ed videos all those years ago was because, like I said, I was aiming my videos at a younger version, a pubescent version of myself, making the videos that I felt like I needed to see at that point. I mean, also it was definitely mixed in with a healthy dose of mania and a need to overshare, but that's where that was coming from, and we can debate the morality and effectiveness of that later. But, I'm still proud of those videos, and they did largely what I wanted to do, which was make the content that I felt like I needed to see to the audience that I felt a sort of sense of responsibility towards. But I absolutely was not making those videos for anyone younger than that. Fucking hell. I mean, it's worth noting that YouTube itself is a 13 plus site. You are supposed to be over 13 years old to have an account on YouTube, and if you're under that, you need to have parental supervision to have an account. I mean, that's why YouTube Kids exists in the first place. And despite that being a reality, we all know that kids use YouTube. I mean, statistically speaking, if you're watching this right now, you probably watched YouTube when you were under the age of 13, and I'm not gonna blame you for that. I mean, I didn't, but only because YouTube didn't exist when I was 13. I was watching much worse stuff. I was watching porn at the age of 12, South Park at the age of 10, and when I was 8, I walked in on the movie It playing on TV and developed a terrifying, crippling fear of photos winking at me. But there's so many reasons why you wouldn't want a youngling on YouTube. For one reason, we are not beholden to any of the same standards that entertainment is across the world, across television, and in some ways that's great fun, but it can also be incredibly dangerous. Back about 7 or so years ago, here in the UK, junk food was banned from being marketed towards kids on kids programming. So what did a lot of these brands do? They just shifted to YouTube, and I know this because I got caught up in a legal battle myself when I took a brand deal with a junk food product, and one could argue that they were using that freedom of YouTube and influencers to get around the guidance. And because the videos weren't clearly stated as being a paid promotion, they had to be taken down. This is the Wild West. There aren't just the same rules here on YouTube. I could plug anything I want to any audience I want, technically. I mean, the only reason that I haven't promoted narcotics to my audience is because I've chosen not to. I have turned down tens of thousands of pounds in work from alcohol brands that are just like, yeah, do us a video on your channel. And it's just, the only thing stopping that is my moral compass saying, nah, my audience probably skews a little younger, so I'm not going to do that. But I could. I absolutely could. And that is just dangerous. That is a dangerous freedom for anyone to have. For example, this very video is sponsored, and if I wanted to, I could target my ad read at a younger demographic, pretty much consequence and oversight free. But I wouldn't do that, not even satirically to try and prove a point. Don't question why my clothes have changed. Hey, did I mention that Surfshark is sponsoring this video? Surfshark is a virtual private network which allows you to access the internet securely, safely, and anonymously. You know how this year they're going to be releasing a lot more movies on streaming platforms because of all the cinemas being closed? Well, maybe when they do that, those films won't immediately be available in your country. And if you had a VPN like, Surfshark, you could change where it looks like you're accessing the internet from, and suddenly, hey, all of those new movies become suddenly available to you. So if you sign up using the link in the description and use code DARKSQUIDGE, you will get 83% off and 3 months extra for free. I mean, I'm just throwing the idea out there. What can I say? I'm now going to go change back out of these clothes for no particular reason. I didn't have to refilm this segment for legal reasons. Don't ask. But yeah, the number of kids watching my videos has been freaking me out a lot lately, and if I needed any more proof that these were prepubescent youngsters trawling my channel, I needed only look at the profile pictures. They all look like this. That's not a real one. That's just my godson. But you get the point, you know? I'd love to be able just to say, fuck it. It's not my problem. It's not my job to babysit or parent these kids and just carry on as I have been. But I know they're there now. And that's always been an issue for me. And I've usually been able to compartmentalize that. You know, like I said, I've always known that there are going to be people who slip through the cracks. And I've taken a degree of responsibility towards that, a degree within what felt reasonable. I mean, when I was making Astro Movie 5, I had a joke where someone was going to throw a baby. And I knew that there was the tiniest possibility that a kid would see that and imitate it. That wasn't worth it, so I changed the joke. And that sort of fear was almost entirely justified when a year or so later I released Astro Movie 6 with the Do the Flop guy, and within hours of that video coming out, clips started pouring onto YouTube of kids as young as like 3 to 5 doing the flop, falling over, you know, throwing themselves off furniture. And I, was so worried that, what if there's one clip that didn't get uploaded to YouTube because the kid broke their neck doing it and mummy just came home to a blood-soaked coffee table and a broken-necked little Timmy and a camera across the room that had run out of batteries and nothing but questions. And that's obviously kind of a ridiculous hypothetical, but that sort of anxiety is what actually became the Do the Flop song. So I've always tried to, be aware of the possibility of younglings watching my channels, and I've always known that the odd one is gonna, slip through. But what else am I supposed to do? Just stop making videos? No, that's stupid, because then I don't have a job, and neither do my employees, and you don't get any videos. For years now, I've tried to be conscious of the impact my work can have. That's why I subtitle my videos so they are accessible to the hard of hearing and non-native English speakers. But I also, add content warnings because I just don't want anyone to have a bad time watching my stuff. And if they're the kind of person that, wants or needs those, they're going to be there as an option. And I'm going to try and make content that, as I said, does not perpetuate negative stereotypes, normalize prejudiced behavior, or encourage, irresponsible shit. And I don't do awesomely at that all the time, but it's something I'm aware of. So when I suddenly see a shitload of young kids on my channel, while I absolutely want to say, fuck it, fuck them, and just keep making the stuff I'm making anyway, my little piece of shit brain's not going to let me do that. It's not going to let me off the hook because I know they're there now. So I'm going to have to adapt, and it leaves me with very few options, and those options are thus: 1, I could just stop making content. Again, not going to do that. 2, I could embrace the audience that have arrived and start sanitizing my content and making it kid-friendly. Even saying that made me throw up a little bit in my mouth, and I'm not going to do that. 3, I could age-gate all of my content. A noble idea, but still not a very good one, because it would first and foremost lock out my intended audience from my channel, but also it would kill my channel because YouTube, surprisingly, is driven by money. And if it can't make money from a video, it's not going to promote it to people. So I think I'd actually lose my career faster than if I just stopped making videos altogether. Also, YouTube has a weird tendency to un-age-gate videos if they do well. They say, hey, wait a minute, we could be making money off this, and they turn it back on. I have multiple times on this channel turned on age-gating and turned off monetization on videos that I know for a fact were very intentionally raunchy, and YouTube just randomly turned it back on and made it publicly available. What is this website? And finally, the thing that I've decided and have already begun doing, I am going to try and drive away that audience by warning their parents, their guardians, or even they themselves that these videos are not for them. And while I'm aware that's largely a performative gesture that will achieve nothing, you know, it's going to be about as effective as clicking "Are you 18" on a porn site or abstinence-only sex education, I've got to do something so I can at least sleep at night. So this is why for the past couple months you've started seeing these sort of advisory warnings at the start of my videos. These are not standard protocols. I'm literally making this up. Once again, I am not following any rules. No one's told me what to do, so I am winging this, and I'm just following my own sort of moral code, which, you know, is a rocky road, because once you start posturing yourself in any way, you open yourself up to so much more criticism. But I've got an age rating system, you know, 12 plus. This is the bare minimum for my videos. I know that YouTube is a 13 plus platform, but, you know, I'm kind of just saying, hey, I personally think that this video is appropriate for at least myself, 12 plus. There's 15 plus. This is when I'm, you know, doing more swearing, you know, sexual themes and you know, particularly gory violence. And then of course there's 18 plus, which is going to go on things that I've made that are balls to the wall, probably mostly on this channel if we're talking about sex and cum and flailing dildos around. But, you know, that's going to be quite rarely used, and if I do, it'll probably also be on videos that are age-gated. We also have these new content warning icons, which I had drawn up by our friend Billy, and they cover pretty much everything that I think you're going to see in my videos. Obviously, I could go nuts and add in, you know, hundreds of them to cover every possibility, arachnophobia and all that stuff, but really I'm thinking about the things that you're going to see in my videos that could actually seriously negatively affect someone. I don't want to cater to every single, you know, squeamishness, but, you know, if I'm going to talk about suicide or if there's going to be a high degree of gore, I just want the audience to feel informed, basically. There's also the sponsor alert that just gets it out of the way at the start of every video. If the video is sponsored, it's going to say, hey, this video is sponsored. This might actually be the law. I don't know. The law is kind of fluctuating when it comes to YouTube sponsors and ad disclosure, but that's going to go there now. A nice place to put it. Gets it out of the way. And finally, and most importantly, this video is not intended or suitable for children on every single card, because that's how I feel. And while, like I said, I'm sure a lot of kids are going to watch this and ignore it, the hope is that their parents, at the very least, if their parents are supervising them, will see that and go, uh-oh, stop it. And I've had people say, but this is going to negatively affect your views. And my answer to that is, I don't give a shit. I don't want those views. I don't want them. I would rather my career tank and I do terribly than foster an audience via deception. Oh, and this isn't to say that I am demonizing people if they watched my content when they were younger, because like I said at the start of this video, you, statistically speaking, were watching YouTube under the age of 13, and you probably found me through Astor Movie, which again, you were watching younger than I intended. And there's nothing I can do about that. There's just such an assumption that it's a cartoon, so it's for kids. But just look at the stuff in it. I was never ever making Astor Movie for a young demographic. I was never making it, you know, for people younger than should be on YouTube. It was always for teen sensibility of, that's random and violent, and that's enough. I've met a decent number of kids at conventions under the age that they are supposed to be watching Astor Movie that have been watching Astor Movie, and I'm a little uncomfortable with it. I'm not going to stand there and be like, what are you doing watching that? You're not supposed to do that, and turn to their parents and be like, what are you doing letting them watch that? But, you know, it's always been a thing. It's always been a reality that I've kind of had to accept. But yeah, it's just the amount that it has dialed up exponentially over the past year or so. And the reason I think this has happened is probably a mixture of things. I mean, obviously there is the viral success of the Muffin Song, which has obviously brought a young audience through TikTok to my channel, and then through that somehow kid-appropriate video has spread out. I mean, I don't know what it is. I guess because it's, you know, a cutesy song and there's a muffin and there's rainbows that it seems appropriate for kids. I mean, that was the same logic that made me walk into a sex shop in Florida when I was like 8 years old. I was like, ooh, shiny colors and things. And yep, my mom had to come drag me away from a shelf of dildos. But I've read articles where a teacher got fired for playing the Muffin Song to a young classroom. And I mean, I guess if they didn't know what the song was, but goodness me. Come on, man. Come on. When I was complaining about this on Twitter, I had a decent number of people saying, you make Astov movie, you make cartoons, you don't have a right to complain that kids are watching your stuff. And that just really angered me, because it's like, yeah, I do. Fuck, I mean, I know who I'm making my videos for, and damn, like, I feel like I still reserve somewhat of a right to have an intended audience, at least. I mean, I have never knowingly, you know, tailored or marketed or aimed my videos towards kids. And, you know, if I'm wrong, if there are receipts that prove otherwise, I'm deeply sorry about that. That was a fucking terrible decision that I made, and it is something I will strongly endeavor to never ever do again across, you know, my main channel, and definitely not this channel. I mean, another reason why I guess there's so many kids on YouTube now is because it's such a household name. It's second nature. Every device comes preloaded with YouTube. And also we are in a lockdown across a lot of parts of the world, and parents need to just kind of unload their kids. But I just think that the worst place to do that is YouTube, this largely unsupervised Wild West. You are putting the care of your children in the hands of anyone, and I'm not even going to talk about, like, you know, the radicalization rabbit hole of YouTube, where like they'll watch London Bridges burning down nursery rhyme, and then it'll like autoplay 9/11 towers burning down, and then it'll autoplay 9/11 was an inside job, and then within 30 minutes, little 7-year-old Timmy is a radicalized neo-Nazi. But please don't let your kids watch YouTube unsupervised. And this is coming from a YouTuber. Please, God, please, if you've got kids or if you've got younger siblings, please don't let them watch YouTube unsupervised. I'm begging you. Like, I had unfettered access to the internet from sort of the age of 11 to 12, and it fucked me up. I looked at some horrible shit, like dead bodies and, you know, hardcore pornography and all this stuff, and I grew up pretty warped and desensitized, and I would really love for the generation that comes after to not be that messed up. It made me incredibly unempathetic, and if there's anything we need in the world a lot more now, it's empathy. Please, God, please don't. I'm not mad at you if you have before now, but please. I mean, long term, I would love it if YouTube would roll out some sort of customizable, optional age verification, or at least, you know, content advisory warning thing. I swear they had one very briefly in like 2012 or 2013 that's just gone now. Honestly, it probably just provided YouTube with a noticeable drop-off in audience retention, and so they just killed it because the primary focus of this platform is to make money and to increase watch time. I'd love it if they rolled that back out. I'm going to be very annoyed if they roll it out as a mandatory thing, and then I've got 2 content warnings at the start of all of my videos. But hey, what I can say is that going forward, I'm going to have these content warnings at the start of all of my videos. I will endeavor to improve them over time, but by and large, this is how I'm going to deal with this issue. It's not gonna be a perfect fix, but it's the best I can think to do right now. And I just really wanted to get this all off my chest because it has been driving me nuts for months now. But yeah, this is actually possibly the last Dark Squidge video ever. Not because I'm going to stop uploading on this channel, but because we're going to rebrand this channel. It's likely changing to TomSka and Friends, just to really bring in that Thomas the Tank Engine fandom. Because the name Dark Squidge just doesn't really mean anything. It's a username I briefly had in the year 2002. And what I want to do with this channel is bring out a bunch more series of me doing stuff with my friends and having fun. We might also be rolling out a Patreon with some exclusive content in the near future, but you'll see. We'll make it, and if you like it, please keep watching, but also don't be very confused if and when the name and branding of this channel abruptly changes. And of course, don't forget to sign up for Surfshark VPN using code DARKSQUIDGE for 83% off and 3 months extra for free. Thank you very much for watching this video, for listening to my ramble, and I will see you for TomSka and Friends. TomSka out.